Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Universes Academy podcast. With you, as always, I'm your host, John Jennings, and with me today is my co-host, Matt Childress. Matt, how we doing tonight, man?
Doing good. How are you?
Doing good. Just coming to chat about some few topics in the My Hero Academia card game. As a lot of our listeners know, last week we had the first weekly Webcam Wednesday event, which was their inaugural Discord webcam tournament, and both you and Ryan had the opportunity to play in it. And so, first, kind of get into that. We'd just like to know what were your initial thoughts and experiences with the actual tournament? How did it go?
Sure. So this is my first webcam event. Played
Mhm.
lots of other events, but never played webcam. Played TTS. Played in person for years. Um, and I was surprised. Like I was pretty, I would say, cautious in my way. Like I didn't think it was probably going to go as well as it did.
Mhm.
But I was pleasantly surprised. Like it went smoothly. Um, I imagine like I never had to call a judge in. And I imagine like that process might still be something to kind of refine because there was like a difficulty kind of keeping track of the time in your matches and all. Like the website, the Smash GG does that, but those timers weren't right because like those timers would start as soon as you clicked like the accept, and then your rival clicked the accept button as well.
Okay.
But that wasn't necessarily when the round launched because they had to do self pairing. So like there were some hiccups.
Mhm.
However, they did a good job like announcing like like 15 minutes left in the round or things like that, like as announcements in the Discord channel. So like you'd get the notification there's a new announcement, and if you're paying attention to it, you could go and check that. So I think there's a learning curve is what I'm getting at for both
Yeah.
of them from an organizational standpoint and for us as players of
Mhm.
how to play in those events, and just the differences you have to kind of be aware of because of the median of play as opposed to traditional face to face and other methods. But overall, I think it went really well. They had 102 people playing in one event
Yeah.
from across the country, and it was 5 rounds. And I only stuck it out for 3 rounds because it was like 11 o'clock and I had work the next morning. And I was like, I'm 2-1. I'm feeling okay about that. We're gonna walk away.
Yeah.
Like,
And you only had
um,
to stay for the first 2 rounds to get the prize support, right?
that's
To get your
correct.
plus
Yeah,
ultra pack in the pack. Yeah. So at that point,
yeah.
you just walk
I
away.
was
You got a
playing
good
for
experience.
pride in the third round. I needed to make sure that I could have a winning record before I walked away. So,
Fair enough. I got you.
yeah, that's all that was.
Nice. Now, I know going into it, you and Ryan did some practice ahead of time with some webcam matches and stuff like that. Do you feel like there's anything you could tweak? How did you feel about your preparation and your setup going into it?
Um, so it was fine. I mean, like in general, like it was good enough.
Hmm.
I think the very real struggle is that you can't. No camera is good enough for you to really see the text of the cards. So you're playing based
Mm,
off of like the card art, and if you don't know all the cards in the game, it definitely slows down play.
hmm.
So like, I had a couple of games where I was playing against someone who was pretty new to the game, and one of them just kind of rolled with it and was knew his cards well enough, so he was able to kind of play through. And then anytime he wasn't sure what my card was, I just read it to him, and that seemed to work pretty well. Another game, the guy wanted to look like up every card on UVS Ultra
Ugh.
as we were playing, his own cards included, and
Oof.
that took a lot of time, and it really slowed the game down, and it was kind of less than ideal to say the least. So
Yeah.
I think I don't know a good way to fix that as far as setup is concerned.
Hmm.
Um, I do think for me personally, like I'm going to try to get a play mat that maybe has like the zones marked off or like some other like a life counter on it kind of thing. Like one of the guys I played against was using the actual Jasco provided play mat, like in the rival deck play mat.
Oh, yeah. Like
And
the fold out.
and
Yeah.
yeah, the fold out one, it has the life across the top. And it was actually really convenient and easy to see his life total even on the webcam because it was right there.
Hmm.
Um, and like I thought about that later. I was like, oh, that's a pretty cool thing. Like I was using dice and you could see the dice, but it wasn't as pronounced as that. So I was like, maybe that's something to add to a playmat as well. Cause a lot of people are trying to make custom playmats right now anyway. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think there's a couple of things to improve. But that's just what works for you. And then is it worth it as far as the financial investment, depending on how many of these tournaments you're going to play in.
Hmm. I can see that. And they have said that they are going to continue doing this. Obviously, they're going to try to
Mhm.
refine the events, and they're not all going to be as big as this one, right? This was just the first one, so they said they wanted to get whoever wanted to play in this one, just sign up. We'll get you in there somehow, right?
Right, right. So like I think they're all gonna be like kind of open door policy of like you can just sign up. Like there's no prereqs for it and all. Like you pay
Hmm.
your $5 and then your service fee or whatever, and then you get to play. and that gets you, as long as you play your 2 rounds or at least participate, they get you your participation prizes. But they kind of, I think the adjustment was they did the 5 rounds and the undefeated because they're giving away those Gen Con play mats.
Yeah, that
And I think what
swag.
they're going to do is it's going to be 3 rounds is what I've heard people talking about. It's kind of the sweet spot that they're wanting, which
Hmm.
it makes sense. Like if it's supposed to simulate a weekly tournament, like your locals. Locals aren't normally 5 rounds. Like you'd have to have a pretty big local scene, like somewhere
Hmm.
like Omaha or somewhere else like that, for you to really pull enough people to have 5 rounds. Normally, I imagine.
Yeah.
So if it's 3 rounds, like we did 3 rounds on Saturday when we played, right?
Hmm.
And we just had the 4 of us this week, so it worked out all right and had some fun. So I think if they could do that, and it only takes maybe like that 3 hours because I played 3 rounds and it was like I said, I got done around 11 and it started at like 7:30. I want to say is when it actually got kicked off.
Okay.
So like 3-ish hours and some change. That's not so bad.
No,
Like
that's very reasonable. 3 hours, $5. You get your matches in, you get your prize support. Maybe you get the victory pack or something. But yeah, that
yeah,
that seems totally reasonable, especially for a weekday night, right? Because that's the idea is they want to have these kind of maybe staggered throughout the week going forward, or just different days.
yeah.
Um,
So it seems like because they've released that community schedule now,
mhm.
and it seems like they're always doing their event on Wednesdays,
Yeah.
and then it looks like they are basically just kind of putting some of the other Discord users and community leaders that have already been running Discord events.
Hmm.
They're just giving them kind of like on the schedule now, so people can see that and be like, "Oh, hey, oh, there is one on Monday night, or there is one on Friday night that I can also play in. Cool, I'm just going to do that because Wednesdays don't work for me." And they're the exact same type of event. 3 rounds or so, $5 or so entry fee, get a plus ultra pack, get a pack of cards mailed to you, that sort of thing. So
Yeah.
um, they're pretty
Um,
approachable and it seems pretty reasonable. I mean, doesn't nothing's better than playing face to face. Like definitely still would rather do that, but at the same time, this is a good safe way to still promote some competitive play.
okay. And speaking of competitive play, what deck did you run that?
So I ran a Void Eraser build,
Hmm.
and like I said, I was 2-1 when I dropped out, and it was a learning experience.
Hmm.
Um, my takeaway ultimately was I would rather play aggro decks. I think because I don't want to play a deck where I have to like kind of wait for multiple rounds when that just gives my opponent more time to build their game plan or do what they want to do, and even further
Oh yeah.
kind of eat up clock even.
Hmm.
So I definitely plan on playing some aggro decks moving forward. I'm not sure which ones. I got a couple I'm working on, but
Nice. And well, speaking of different decks played and stuff, that's a good transition. We can go over real quick the top 8. There were, I think, technically four. There were two undefeateds, right? And
there
they
were.
gave out mats to the top four, right? Is that right?
No, you had to go undefeated to win a mat.
Oh, he had to go
So,
undefeated. Okay.
correct. You had to go 5-0. And there's only two characters did, and that was that Kirishima and the Eraserhead.
Yeah. Um. All right. So in eighth place, we had an Air Giro deck.
Hmm.
Seventh place, we had another Air Giro deck.
Hmm.
Sixth place, we had another Void Eraserhead. Fifth place was Good Kirishima. Fourth place was an Earth deck. I believe it was maybe a Nomu. I'm
It
looking at
was
the.
it was
It was a
Kirishima.
Kirishima. It was a Kirishima. Okay, I was looking at the
Kirishima.
the UVS Ultra. It didn't have the character listed.
Hmm.
And third place we had Air Kamui Woods. Second
Hmm.
place was the Void Eraserhead, and
Hmm.
then first place was Void Kirishima.
Yeah.
And so Void Kirishima had sideboard for Ida, and the second place Eraserhead deck actually had sideboarded into Kirishima, which I thought was
Right.
neat. I think as far as the top 8 breakdown, I think it was pretty good. I think it's a pretty good representation of what's strong in the game and what's not. You've got the air decks that are running stuff like Meteor Shower or those kind of things with Jiro, and then Kamui Woods. Not surprising to see a Kirishima deck come in first. I was a little surprised to see it wasn't the good version that we saw Tony 2 and Shane running, but actually this was Tony's deck, that wasn't it? He was piloting the Void version, or was he
No,
the
he
Eraserhead?
played Eraserhead. He
Eraserhead.
he was the
Okay.
Eraserhead that was siding into Kirishima.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, there we go. That's what it
Um,
was.
no, so like, so the most interesting thing to me is that Kirishima made top 8 on all 3 symbols.
Yeah.
So like that's I'm not one who to sound the alarm that I think Kirishima is like this huge problem, but the fact that the character is literally so generically good that it
Hmm.
doesn't matter what symbol you play him off of, and he's that consistent, does, I think, indicate there need to be some answers to him. You know what I'm saying? Like, there need to be some other ways to interact with him, some other things to disrupt his game plan,
Hmm.
um, because, he's just incredibly consistent, and it doesn't matter what symbol you put him off of, it doesn't matter what approach you're taking to try to kill them, like, you're just gonna kinda get there,
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's just even if you're playing against Eraserhead, they can't erase you forever. And even
right?
if they're trying, like he just has the ability, even through not even his power of picking up cards and building for free, just his support lets you do it enough that it kind of doesn't matter. That
Right.
eventually you get to that critical mass of cards where you built up your support and you can just play out more attacks and they can erase. But I do agree, and as we've said before we talk about banning characters and anything like that, this is set one. We don't know what all the characters are going to look like in set two, what the new characters are going to look like, what the old characters are going to look like with the new cards, even.
Right.
Um, so I do agree. It is an indication that Kirishima is just generically good across the board.
Yeah.
Um, I can't think of a situation in old UFS. You played old UFS much longer than I did, the
Sure.
whole way. In fact,
Yeah, yeah.
can you think of a time when a character would have? I guess it was impossible with diversity, but when a character could have top aided off any symbol they had in a situation similar to this, where you had a Kirishima in the top eight off every symbol
Well, yeah, but say they couldn't because of
because of
diversity,
diversity. You
but,
could only have one,
um,
but
I wanna say yes. Like, there were definitely a couple of times where, like, a character was so generically good,
hmm.
um, like, Gemini Man was really good. He had a best symbol, but he was just generically really good, and then I would say you could have done it with, I don't know if you could have done it with Napalm Man, but he was really, really good too. Like there have been characters like that. It's just it's hard to compare because you can't ever see results that were that way. Like you could go to
Yeah,
pre-diversity, like pre-top cut results, like the final placement after Swiss, and you might see that, but that doesn't normally give you the symbol breakdown. That just told you
mhm,
the records, you know,
that's
and
true.
the character.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, like to for the comparison, like he's literally just a reprinted version of
mm,
Maxima or whatever from old UFS, and he's a 5 hand size version of it because that character was a 6 hand size and could do it as many times as he wanted to pick stuff up. So he's a watered down version of that character, and he's still real, real, real good.
yeah,
Um, so um, and his support just plays really well with him and with others, you know, like and that's kind of what Tony, he did a write up talking about basically how he decided what cards to put in to his Eraserhead deck based off the idea of siding them out and playing Kirishima in some matchups. So um, I think another takeaway is that Void as a symbol is also just probably generically good right now in set one.
I yeah. I think it after I not knowing what they were going to play, I built a deck for our locals this past week, and I actually ended up building Void Kirishima with the side deck into Ida instead of Razorhead. So I guess what the top set was, top place
Yeah.
was. But that's kind of the conclusion I came to as well. Is that I think Void's just the strongest symbol right now. It has the best answers and still enough aggro, which is what you want, obviously. Um,
Yeah, I don't know if I'm one to say it's the best, but I think it's definitely one of the best. Like I
yeah,
and
I'd
that just
say
I think
Void are
comes
good.
down. Yeah, I think good's also strong. But I think good its strength is more contingent upon the character, whereas I
Hmm.
think Void's card pool it is better. Like
Hmm.
it just generically like it doesn't matter what character you front, they can all kind of play with it pretty nicely.
Yep.
Which that's a good design though. Like I mean, like if you have a kit that just any character can jump on top of and still be pretty successful and work pretty well with it,
Yeah.
um, that's good because that means that opens up a lot of choices as far as what character you choose and what strategies you want to try to go with to win games. And that's really all you can ever ask for, right? Like you don't want to be locked into I have to do X because that's the only option.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, and on the subject of Tony's write up, I will say I encourage you to read it because he doesn't talk about just about the deck itself, but he kind of talks about his deck building process, which I thought
Mhm.
was really interesting. And it was just a really good read, and it's a lot of good insight into how he prepares. And obviously, I mean, having won both the first major events, right? I have to say he's the top player in the game. Uh,
Yeah, I think he technically got second in this event, but he went
well,
undefeated, which is
he
what
went
really
undefeated.
mattered.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's he's undefeated.
yeah. I don't
And
know how they
yeah,
determined first and second because they both were just undefeated. So, um,
maybe he won 2-0 and the other person won 2-1 or something. Maybe
maybe yeah,
overall
like tie breaks or something. I don't
overall
know.
records. Yeah.
But either
Um,
way, you're not wrong. He's a great player clearly, and has a really good grasp of the game currently.
yeah.
Um, and he played from before as well.
Yeah.
And he's he's surrounded by some other really great players out there in Omaha. So like that they're
Mhm.
gonna kind of feedback loop it. So
Oh,
that's
definitely.
great. And
Um,
it's good to see.
uh, and one more thing before you get out of here. There was some other news recently. They are no longer going to have the Joffus, which is not as a big a deal for me, having only come back to the game with My Hero Academia. That I basically got out of the game right as Jasco was taking over.
Hmm.
And so the Joffus isn't a real big thing to me, but as someone who was with the game much longer, can you kind of tell us what the Joffus was or what they?
Sure. Yeah, so like the Joffice is has always been the number one way basically to get information from Jasco,
Mhm,
and kind of to communicate directly with them as well. Um, and my guess is that they're getting rid of the Joffice, and they even said like here's how you're gonna get this information moving forward. And what they're doing is they're kind of pulling it apart. I think
mhm,
that's a product of MHA being as big as it is, like I said,
mhm,
100 people on a random Wednesday night to play in an online event. So they want to make sure that basically everything else is also still getting attention, in addition to MHA getting the attention that it needs. So it seems like they're going to kind of pull it apart and they're going to have different platforms for different things. So that way, hopefully, you can get information about whatever game it is that you're playing that is a Jasco game, um, with a quicker response or with a more direct response, as opposed to what happened a lot of times on the Joffice is like, recently people would tune in and they'd be like, "What's the MHA information?" They're asking a bunch of questions, and then they're like, "We're going to talk about that at the end," and we're trying to talk about board games right now, and then people are like, "We will," and then someone comes in at the end, they're like, "What's going on with my board game?" And it's just like, kind of
mhm.
made things messy for them, and I think some of their fans, of their games just kind of got frustrated at times because like, "Ah, I don't ever know, like you haven't given us an update about this," and I I, I am sad to see it go. Like I know, Jason always really enjoyed doing that, but I'm sure that it's not a decision they reached easily, and that I'm sure he's going to find his own way to still make sure that he's directly engaging with the community. Like I know he's talked about all the time how he really loves listening and watching the community created content. You heard it here first, guys. Moving forward, since there's no more Joffice, you're welcome. You can just come listen to our show every week, and it's basically the same thing.
Yeah,
Um,
and,
we're
Jason, if you're listening, we out here to break any spoilers you want, just so you know.
Yeah, well, and so I mean, just given our community, people who are listening now, a little heads up,
Mhm,
like we are actively working on trying to get some interviews together and talk to some of
mhm,
the other, community, individuals, and also, some of the Jasco staff as well, to kind of get them on the show and hopefully get some questions answered for you guys, and kind of give you some insight as to who they are and what they have going on as well. So a little something to look forward to as we move forward in pod, because we're at the point now where we've covered all the symbols, and
mhm,
we're going to adjust and move forward and kind of continue to provide you with as best quality content as we can.
definitely. And, on that note, I think that's gonna do it for us tonight. We don't really have anything else to go over unless you got something you wanted to add, man.
No, I would just say if you have not played in the webcam weeklies,
Mhm,
give them a try. Pick your poison. Whichever night that you want to run on.
mhm,
Keep looking for our deck write ups and checking out the website and our other social media stuff. We've got some other stuff in the works, that we're going to try to announce here in the coming weeks as well. So just follow us on Facebook or whatever other platform you might have to keep up with us, YouTube, whatever. And
yeah, man, we're out there on all the stuff.
Yeah, we're out there, man. We're in the interwebs. So um,
Yeah.
we'll see you there. And thanks for listening. We appreciate all your support.
Yeah, thanks for coming by, guys. Have a great week.
Have a good one.